into it.
Yeah, man.
So first generation talk. It's our
first generation talk. The first talk of the first generation.
Yeah. We should probably. I'm Dramos Radamiz, obviously.
I am Radamiz. Yep.
So I mean, I guess just we should probably do like a little thing about why we started this podcast.
Yeah.
So you and I linked up. We met at your album release party.
Yes.
Here
Before
in
that,
New York.
no. Remember, I told you.
Right.
I met you at the rooftop party for Sony. It was like on the
that's
top
right. Yeah, I remember you telling me. I know where the hell we met before. Okay,
and I remember I was like, "Yo, this dude has a long ass beard. I know this kid, but I don't remember where your face." And then after you left, I was like, "Wow, that's literally the producer of the show. That's who's
right." I think it was at like an Ultra Records party.
Yes.
I do remember that. All right, so we met there and we reconnected.
But you don't remember?
No, because I didn't remember because I think you probably were just like, "Yo, I know you from somewhere." And I didn't think much of it.
It literally was just like, "Yo, it's popping. I seen you." All right, peace.
Yeah, I didn't think much of it because I get that all the time. Like, I think I know you from somewhere. I'm like, maybe I don't know. But yeah, so we connected at your album release party, and I think just through like social media on the gram, we were just kind of like stayed in touch.
Yeah, man.
And then I had you on my YouTube show that I do for the Breakfast Club's YouTube channel.
Yes.
So we did that, and for anybody that doesn't kind of know us, Radamiz is an artist, rapper, author at this point.
All of that.
Visionary.
Actor, model, sex symbol,
there
everything. You know what I mean?
And I am a radio personality, DJ, producer, whatever. I'm of Puerto Rican descent. You are of Dominican descent.
100%.
So we connected on that level because I think it was in our interview we were talking about how we have this attachment to our culture of like where our parents came from and our parents' came from, but we also have this shared experience of being American born.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that isn't, represented in the media, you know what I mean, as far as like in the Latino community, because you have like the Latin station, like the Univision or whatever.
Exactly.
And that's just straight up like Latin, you know what I mean? Like
Univision doesn't care about the English speaking consumer.
Absolutely.
Really.
And most Latin radio in New York doesn't concern itself. So we have this experience where like we came up on what anybody else in New York or the tri-state or around the country probably would even came up on, which was hip hop.
Right.
And any other American culture. So we share this weird experience, and we almost don't fit into that world.
But then in the car, you listening to all the Spanish radio stations, the jokes, the callers, and that's where you learn like the duality of just like, wait, my experience is a bit different because I definitely don't hear this in anybody else's car.
Yeah,
it's only my parents and my friends.
And when some shit happens in that community, it hits hard. It hits you. You know what I'm saying? You feel it.
Yes.
Because you still have that attachment to it. So it is this weird experience that is kind of unique to us as, like American Latinos. Mm-hmm. So we kind of felt like, that the representation wasn't there for us, and we needed to create something that, shares that experience for people. So that's pretty much the basis of this whole podcast.
Yeah, it's a trip because, I think for me, as an artist, it took a minute to even admit that.
Right.
Because it felt like something that everyone knew. Mm-hmm. People definitely speak on it. There's definitely been people who've paved the way in every field of this.
Right.
Whether it be hip hop artists, radio personalities. There's always been players at it, but it's never, I felt, been an organized conversation and something that is level-headed. And I don't know, I guess enough time has passed where we can even understand how to like have a formed perspective and how to like actually be able to initiate some form of change. You know what I mean? And some form of like inclusion that isn't pivoting to one to the other. It's just real about the gray area in between.
Yeah.
And as an MC, that took a minute also.
Right. Well,
because I never really, you know what I mean?
Then you also, when you come up, you have like this, almost people look at you funny, like, oh, wait, you're a rapper?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm never,
Spanish, right?
I'm always like, oh yeah, I'm an artist. Okay, do you produce?
Right.
Oh, so you're a singer.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're a songwriter.
Right.
It's like they're ignoring, like, look at me. Like, what you talking about?
Right,
I'm hip hop, I'm rap, you know what I mean? Like, but it's always like, no, we're not gonna just like automatically see. I mean, and I guess sometimes to some people that can work as a benefit, but it's weird when it's not assumed of you too, and that's just what you do. It's just like, wait, why is it that I'm not included?
Well, you know what?
And then I'm usually told,
right.
Oh, yeah, you're Dominican. Oh, your hair. Oh, like, I don't know, like something about me just doesn't scream hip hop to people. And it's like, I wonder who else has that experience, you know?
I'm sure a lot of people, what's also interesting, and you can tell me if this is a shared experience for you, but I've almost felt like even within our own community, being that I wasn't born over there, they look down on you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like they almost like, they'll call you a gringo. You know what I mean? But then it's like, okay, but then like, anybody from America over here is like, oh, you're Mexican. So it's like, What am I? There's this racism that exists on both sides almost.
Yeah, because
that's
what I was about to say. Because then on the other side, I'm like riding for my Latino side, and then I speak to my cousins in Dominican Republic or my aunts and uncles, and they're making fun of that. They're like, English, hip hop, why?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
What are you doing? So it's like on both sides, the assumed opinion is that I don't belong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's like the fight for proof of authenticity, because it's not like you're trying to add, like, you know, prove to someone else that you are who you are. No, you are who you are already. You walk in like that, but it's like weird because you get resistance on two sides, and then the resistance on both sides are contrary to each other. You know, it's because of you're Dominican, it's like we don't expect you, and it's because you're Dominican, we don't expect you to be a hip hop artist. You know, it's a trip.
You're fucked on both sides, and that's why like the experience is so weird. And I know, like, when we met, I was like, oh shit, like I know I'm not the only one. I think I had been starting to feel it, and it's interesting because I kind of had been feeling over the last few months. It was like, what's next for me? You know what I mean? Like I had almost been feeling like this almost spiritual hunger, I guess. You know what I'm saying? And I think I've been having this spiritual awakening. I think when you and I met for coffee the other day, we were talking about the podcast. You had kind of mentioned certain things were putting stuff in perspective. And I think the death of Pop Smoke was one of those things where you were kind of talking about how you started maybe rethinking certain things a little bit of what was important. And I think, you know, that didn't hit me necessarily as hard. I'm not from Brooklyn. I wasn't necessarily in that scene, so I'm sure for you as even just an artist, it hits a little bit harder.
Of course.
But it's something that I had been feeling. Like, what else is there? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to do a little bit more, you know, and obviously working with the Breakfast Club every day and seeing what they're able to do for their community.
Right.
I'm looking around like, well, who's doing that for us now? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm seeing the blueprint over there, and it's needed for us as well. You know?
Yeah, because the thing is, it's like, at the end of the day, the voice that we are establishing is not a voice that's new. There are millions of people, not even if you're not Latino, like there's like Indian, there's Asian, there's so many pockets that are just as a part of hip hop as like the front runners of it, and contribute to the existence of the culture that aren't necessarily reflected in the media or in the music all the time. You know what I mean? And I think, man, like, it's necessary to have those feelings. It's necessary to have those reevaluations, because honestly, that was one of the things that made me fuck with you even more. Like, you meet people in positions all day. Oh yeah, this person works with the radio. This person works with this. That's dope. But honestly, it was on your IG. I remember I started seeing you hit them with the 4-paragraph captions. But I'm reading what you're saying though, and I'm like, yo, like, this man gets it. You know what I mean? Because there is a higher draw there in the display of like the full human presence, the display of the full human experience, even though it can just be channeled through a song, somebody's car in the morning, you know what I'm saying, just hearing whatever is being spoken about. It resonates deeper than the entertainment and how it's consumed. And I think it's necessary to have those opinions and have those perspectives and have those changes and ask those questions. So like with something like a death like of a Pop Smoke, I mean, death normally does that. And that's like one of the gifts of death. It's like you press pause, and the closer you are to it, usually the harder that stop is. But it makes you question life, and it makes you question your gratitude for every single day, and it makes you reevaluate what is it that you're doing with your decisions on a day-to-day basis. You realize how the decisions that you think are the most minimal have the potential to be the most impactful and resonate the highest on your life. So, and the same kind of experience you had when you are in the light to a certain extent in multiple pockets as a producer, as a DJ, as a producer of the show. For me as an artist as well, it's like, all right, I'm dope. Cool. Like, I remember I talked to my boy Quelo, who does like a lot of like promotion and marketing for like brands, and he said, what's your brand when nobody knows a song about you? Like, what's the first thing that people think about when they think about you? And I had to really reevaluate what are the general opinions of me, what is the general perspective of me, and realize in the nuances of my work, that ends up speaking generally to the world, even if they've never heard about me or don't have a song memorized. But if you say the name Radamiz, what comes to mind? And I wanted to make sure that being Dominican is part of that. I wanted to make sure that representing a subculture to the masses is a part of that. So like when I was making my album, that was part of it's like the same questions that you were asking. I'm like, yo, like if I'm gonna do this album, nothing changes if nothing changes, and let's say this is the biggest I ever get. Because you can't assume for the best always. You have to assume for the worst too. It's like, how can I make sure that I give a fuck about this moment?
Yeah,
how
you don't leave anything on the table.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, so then let me tell you about my family. All right, let me put in these words. Let me put in these specific punchlines that only if you're raised in certain households you're gonna understand. But let me make sure that the world understands what I'm saying too. Yeah. Because it's not like I'm trying to close off the rest of the world. I want to talk to everybody in the world, but I want to make sure I bring myself to the conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. I mean, so talking about like awakenings, everything. So Royce the 5'9" was on the Breakfast Club.
Man, his album is fire.
Fire. We were saying this when we got out. I was like, yo, it's like listening to a TED Talk. Like I'm not even listening to it necessarily for like music to like just bump. I'm like listening to it to listen to what he's saying and the interludes and everything that comes along with it. So I want to play you a clip.
Sure. Let me put the headphones on.
Yeah. So I'm gonna play you a clip because it kind of talks. He was talking about a spiritual awakening. Yeah. And we can kind of hear his perspective.
Another spiritual awakening is just you wake up one day and you just start seeing things a little bit clearer than what they were before, and it's a little bit more of the truth. You get past all the conflation and everything, and you just get to see things for what they are. Sometimes you don't like what you see, like us not being included. It's like it makes you want to like research other things, and like it's like it takes a certain kind of person to be willing to unlearn a lot of the things that we learned in order to take in new information. The real information.
At 41 years old, the past 3 years, I've unlearned more things than I've learned.
Yeah.
You're dealing with like 30 plus years of shit that don't serve us no more.
Damn. Real.
Yeah, and I love that because I think it's easy to be like, oh, that's just like an OG talking, but there's no reason why we can't. We should be picking up that game,
bro. Like I have the album that I did before, really quick. The album that I did before Nothing Changes. It's an album called Righteous, and the people fuck with me know. But if you go back, the album covers like a baby holding a gun to itself. Yeah, and a lot of people interpreted that as like death or something like that. But the meaning of that image was, this is how far back negative effects can start in your life. And because part of the album cover also is you see a hand in the corner, which to me represents there was supervision in this too. Yeah. And I realized that, and my album now dealt with the same thing. Nothing changes and nothing changes. It's like, yo, like I'm fed up about where I'm at in my life, but you have to get there. Right. And you have to be willing to step away from your phone real quick, step away from your normal practices of what brings you joy and what brings you happiness, and look at yourself in the fucking mirror. You know what I mean? Look at yourself in the mirror, address where you're at in your life, look at your bank account proudly. Right. You know what I mean? Like, all right, if you're not happy with your money, look at that shit. All right, now pay attention to your spending habits. All right, you're not happy with the way you deal with women. All right, look at your conversations. See where things have shifted. See where you had power and start undoing those same things, because a lot of it is routine based. It's not even like a joy anymore. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so when he's saying that, it resonates hard because I'm like, I feel like I try to do that every day to a certain extent. But you hear somebody who's 41 years old who's been in the game for just as long as I've been alive almost, and is at a place in his career where I feel like finally it feels like all together. It feels like he has the touring down, he has the collaborations down, he has the brief moments of like high attention if he wants it. Or it's like time to do an album, and if it's not, then he's free to do whatever he wants, and that's true wealth, and that's true freedom. You know?
And for me, I listen to these guys because I don't want to wait till I'm 41 to have that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to go through a decade or 2 decades of doing bullshit stuff that doesn't really matter. Like I want real life now. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I fucked with. Like Nip's death hit me harder than Pop.
Nip's death was like,
because that was a dude that got it. He got in the prime of his life, understood that what really mattered. He like understood the lessons that like these dudes have been in the game for a long time are now trying to teach. Like he understood trying to make his life mean something when he was young like that. You know what I'm saying?
Even though it didn't exist, and that's the thing. Like a lot of the times, and I think all of us are victim to it to a certain extent.
And what do you mean it didn't exist?
You try something for like 2-3 weeks, a month, however long, and our problems are usually so today based, and our successes are so in the future based that sometimes there's the distance is like unbearable. Right. So when I say that, I mean Nipsey was never wasn't always in the fully gathered stage of his life.
Absolutely.
It's not like he's owned all the property this whole time. It's not like he had all the jewelry he wanted to have and could give you specific examples, like accurate examples in just like what his day-to-day life was.
Right.
That was proof of his advice, right?
Yeah.
All of the clips that you see of Nipsey talking is from 10 years ago.
Right.
You see that he has the regular Gildan 3X blue t-shirt with the white under. Like, there's no jewelry on anybody. You see the cars. You see the quality of the videos. You see the quality of as an artist, the quality of the mixing, all of this. Like, you see that it's not like he was successful then.
Yeah.
But he never strayed away from what the goal was. He never strayed away from what the intention was and the place that he wanted to be in his life. So the reason why it was so, like, impactful to any generation seeing a passing like Nips is because he finally spoke his truth into existence. He spoke it, and then it finally became true.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, even the fact that the first time he wins a Grammy is the last song he released while he before he passed away. It's like moments like that, and it's like, man, like, we have to take advantage of today as much as possible in a joyous way too. Like, Nipsey wasn't out here sad about it. He was enjoying life, but it's like, man, sometimes you really got to stay the course. And if you're listening to something like Royce when he's like, yo, things start changing bit by bit, and you know, you basically just lose patience for accepting the things that you don't want in your life.
Right. That's
a process. That is not a day by day. Even if the realization is by night, the implication of it is like
and well, it's also like what you said. You got to look in the mirror and want that, but you shouldn't have to wait until you know, making all these mistakes and wasting all this time. Like, Nip from a young age was reading about shit. You know what I'm saying? Educating himself and like hearing other perspectives from people and people that don't look like him at all, and learning about different ways and how he actually wanted to move and the person he wanted to become. You know, like, I feel like we waste so much time, you know, even if you just think about it in terms of finances. Like, if I think about all the dumb shit I bought over the years and add it up, bro, like, my bank account look a lot different. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be real. So it's like, why did I need to go through that, you know, that stage? If I would have started to educate myself and really understood what true success was at that point in time, you know, what actual wealth is. It's not about what you're wearing, but the freedom you have because of, you know, what you've done to set yourself up. You know, if you learn that at a young age, man, you're really setting yourself to really enjoy life after that. Like, we waste so much time just doing dumb shit, standing on couches in clubs and posting dumb shit on social media. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I haven't done that in a minute. Even though I got a Burberry jacket on right now, because that's the other thing too. There's still balance. There's still, like, you are allowed to enjoy success.
Absolutely. You're into what you're into.
You are
allowed
allowed
to
to enjoy beauty.
Yeah.
You are allowed to, like, every now and then, but at some point you do have to just take consideration that tomorrow exists too.
Absolutely.
Life is short, but then life is long also, and these decisions have long lasting effects. So I mean, so I'm curious. So what? I mean, for you, is like a day-to-day mindset check, or like what like, how have you gotten to this place where you're starting to address these things?
I mean, bro, I'm like, I try to make myself a student of everything, like YouTube interviews and everything. Like, I want to just learn about how people move, and if there is an issue, whether it's like my mental state or something, I want to figure out how to address it, because I know I'm not alone in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm going through like a depression wave or some shit, I know I'm not alone in it. So how do other people move through that? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do people figure out what their triggers are and all these different things? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to truly be the best version of myself on every single level.
Who's been a big teacher for you in that?
Man, big teacher. I mean, I listen. I mean, I love Nip. I hate to keep harping on his stuff, but I think also, man, I've always kind of felt this. I've always followed a certain moral code, but I also think that getting with the Breakfast Club over the last couple of years, seeing the way they move, really changed so much for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, really showed me.
What about the movement specifically?
So you have people that are obviously extremely wealthy, you know what I mean? But they place so much value on things like family and all this different stuff, like the shit that really matters. And also they fucked up. They went through the shit of, you know, publicly fucking around on their wives and doing all these different things. And now, you know, the way they move, Envy will fly out for a gig and then he'll be back home to take his kids to, you know, a basketball game. You know, or Charlamagne will fly for an event, fly right back home, shit like that. Like, little things like that I probably wouldn't have even thought to do. It's like the idea of seeing that the way you have to move is also acknowledging that, like, the devil's out there as well, and you have to figure out ways to avoid it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're, I don't know, if I'm DJing in Vegas, just for the sake of example, I know if I go to the after party and it's a bunch of shit going on, like, I'm putting myself in a position to fuck up. You know what I'm saying? And it's having that knowledge of, like, what really truly matters.
Yeah, I was just at SNS bar and I told my boy, like, my people were like taking long to like get out.
Yeah.
And I never leave parties at the end of it. And for me, I was always told, like, don't leave at the end. Like, I don't wait for the devil.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's normally the worst parts of a party, or the most likely something negative is going to happen is at the very end. But it takes like experience to do that.
No, it does.
And you see that.
I mean, you have to recognize the tools are out there. I started listening to a lot of like self-help podcasts, started reading self-help books and things like that to like gain that knowledge. There's a book, I think it's called Stillness is a Key. It's Ryan Holiday.
Okay.
And just talking about, like, there's one chapter that hit me specifically hard. He talks about JFK, and it's during the Cold War with Russia. So it was like it was two different things he did to figure out how to get beyond that situation.
Yeah.
But one thing that hit me hard was JFK, basically the night before they thought Russia was going to set off like this nuclear bomb. They had just moved into Cuba. They were going to launch it into America. Instead of spending that time with his family, his wife, his kids, he ended up in a hotel room with some random girl to go fuck her. And it's this idea that like he, even in the process of sudden death at this point, couldn't find like the calmness inside of him to realize what was truly important in that moment.
Damn.
Like, think about if they would have gotten hit there, he would have died, in a hotel room with some random girl. Piece. And his wife and kids would have died alone. You know what I'm saying? Like that's some like crazy heavy stuff that you don't have the level of self-control to truly understand what's important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That can go with anything. It doesn't have to do with relationships. It can go with your money. It can go with your job, the way you react in a certain situation, an altercation, the way you do. Because everything happens in a split second. You know what I'm saying? And it's about finding the ability to like have that internal stillness that like makes you pause for a second and really realize what's important. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think that also, I mean, everything comes with time, but for me, that's why I'm like a walker. For me, that's why I like to just stare at the ceiling sometimes or just sit with nothing in front of me and post up and really just like, because a lot of the times when we have negative feelings towards, let's say, our current predicaments in our life, it's not that they're not figure outable. You know how you feel.
Right.
The thing is to have patience with unwinding why is it that you feel that way? What's the root about it? And for me, I'm very big on like self-accountability. And a lot of the times, and I think we're all victim to it, is that we blame our circumstances or we blame other people who may have power, may have had power over our situations, or, jobs, positions, gigs that somebody was an asshole, somebody didn't treat you fairly, somebody cheated you out some money, and it's like justifiable anger. And a lot of the times we have very justifiable depression. We have very justifiable anger. We have justifiable wrath. But you're a part of that as well. Like your action outward is going to affect you, because now next time you're less willing to take a step back and think about how your future is going to be affected by your actions, whether you're right about it or not. And it's like, and that's true, man. It's like, I believe in that. Like for me, I'm a very big practitioner on just like stillness. And I'm a very big practitioner because I realized how much times I've been able to stray away from like an impulse, specifically like arguments. I'm not big on arguing. I'm not an argumentative person. I feel like there is a lack of knowledge that is automatically a result of that. There's a byproduct, because now you don't know the other person's perspective. You don't know how they were right and how you could have just went about something better. But a lot of the times, you have a lot of machismo, especially like Dominican culture and Latino culture in general, like this hyper masculinity and like a lot of the times people it's just men trying to be outman another man. And it's like, wait a minute, like I've learned so much from just like, if I have a problem with somebody, I call them or I try to meet up with you in person or we FaceTime or something. I'm not texting you and I'm not calling you out of your name. Like we're expressing each other, you know what I'm saying? We're expressing ourselves to each other, and in that you're gonna find, I don't know, resolution that I think is necessary for those times when you're the only one on the other side of that table too. Now you are your own enemy, you know what I mean? And you have to calm yourself down. Like you even know how to go about that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think talking about like,
and that's the biggest, like, because even like enlightenment, like the Buddha speaks like and it's in only so much ways I can use the word. You just have to go through it to feel it. And it's like, enlightenment isn't in the book, enlightenment is in life. You know?
No, absolutely. And I think the conversation we have is important, because I think it's easy to brush off somebody who is older and like has, all this success in life as being like, oh, you're only saying that because you're rich. You're only saying that because you're, 40 plus years old. And I think it's important to take any stigma away from like being informed educated, self-aware.
Yeah.
Those aren't corny things. That's actually where it's
that's
at.
just cool.
Exactly.
I was just telling my girl's little cousin, like, yo, like she's having like a hard time focusing in school.
Yeah.
She's like, 7 years old, 8 years old, whatever. And I'm just like, yo, like being smart is cool.
Yeah.
And for me, I honestly always thought that, but I think for me, like my personal experience, like with education, like my elementary school was a public school. My middle school was a specialized school. It was Philippa Schuyler in Bushwick. And then my high school was a public school again, but I was my second graduating class. So we were like guinea pigs to a certain by default, but then I went to NYU.
Yeah.
So then it's like, I've had like every perspective on education you can have kind of in New York.
Yeah.
And the biggest takeaway I got from it is the more I learned, the more people I could speak with.
Yeah.
The more I learned, the better I was able to handle myself in any day-to-day conversations.
Absolutely.
And it's not necessarily because of the institution. I've definitely done way more learning on my own than books being assigned to me. I read, I read more when I choose what the fuck I want to buy. But it's like, man, like that shit is cool. But for some reason, we don't applaud that. Or like, I don't know if it disenfranchises you, like is education disenfranchising? But I feel like a lot of times it's just ego. Like people are smart because they want to be able to outsmart somebody else, which is like the antithesis of the point. You know?
I mean, I think the more you educate yourself, the less.
But we're not grown up on that. We're grown up that cool is fashion,
Yeah.
cool is sports, all
drinking,
of that.
all this.
All of that. And which is cool.
Yeah.
It's dope. Oh, worry, he could handle his shots and go home.
But it's on balance.
But like, man, you know what I mean?
But if you don't have the education behind it, like the self-awareness that comes with education, you allow yourself to fall victim to your circumstances.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like yeah, shit sucks. A lot of people go through everything in life, but the more informed you are about how to handle things, the more well-rounded you are, how to communicate properly with different kinds of people, and advance yourself into different situations, the less those outside circumstances are going to make you a victim. You know what I'm saying? Like that's real power, is when you have the knowledge to get yourself out of any situation. You know what I'm saying? When you have the knowledge to confidently walk into any place and know that I belong here because I can hold my own in any environment that you're going to throw my way. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it all the power comes down to it. And it's you see I had friends who were huge into partying and all these different things, and now they didn't complete their dreams. They had to settle with a lot of what life gave them because they became victims of their circumstances. And that's not just things in the hood, it's kids in the suburbs as well.
Bro, all levels. Because a lot of the times, man, like humans, we are slaves to our daily emotions and daily impulses so much. It's like the thing where it's why like bars are filled Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. A lot of the times, like, sure, their life has to be celebrated, but a lot of the times you're just trying to overcompensate for not enjoying how you make your money in the first place.
Becomes escapism.
And yes, because exactly, there's a part of escapism. But then the other part, like on the financial side, like I myself am learning more about how money works and self-imposed goals and my own dreams, you know, and I realize like I've had to do a lot of unlearning in that as well. And I'm sure a lot of other people too, like being first generation immigrants specifically, like at least for me, my parents, they had to be more cautious with their dollar. They had to be more fearful. They had to be more calculative because they didn't even know the language they were in. They come to this country and there's a limited amount of family members that actually have a substantial more years of experience than them. Like, oh yeah, my cousin lives here, but they only came here 2 years before you did. So how much opportunity have you actually had at owning property, owning institutions, knowing people in all different types of buildings to like provide a better future for your children? And I don't blame them for like being fearful with their bread, but I remember at some point I had to just be like, wait, like y'all didn't sacrifice your time, you didn't sacrifice your money, you didn't sacrifice your opportunity to mess up for me to be safe. To, you know what I mean? To me to be safe with my career path. Actually, you guys like what you did for me is that you gave me the platform to make mistakes. you gave me the platform to mess up. You gave me the platform to roll the dice and see if it happens, and gave me enough of a cushion that if that really messed up, I didn't fall all the way down, because y'all didn't have that.
Right.
If y'all did that, none of us would be eating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, and that's one of the responsibilities I believe is like comes with like being a first generation immigrant too. It's like, learn from your parents, learn the wisdom, because that's the other thing. Like I realize how, you know, health conscious and vegan and, you know, green my parents have been from birth. Like they make fun of people who are like, oh yeah, like they're super healthy, and it's just like, what, we grew that in our backyards. That's not avocado isn't why are you charging $10 for that on toast? Like we eat them shits every day. You know what I mean? Like, so I realized a lot of the wisdom, you know, even dietary for real. But the biggest one is that, like, yo, you know what? Like, it's my responsibility to like make you know how much bigger this world can even be. You know what I'm saying? And part of that is like being aware of your finances in a different way. Because that's the thing, is part of it is saving, part of it is like investing. And investing can obviously it can be formed in multiple ways, but I think the biggest one is investing in your future and investing in your possibilities for later. You know?
I mean,
not just being confined to you know, a rigid pay system.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a part of like, you got to be conscious of not allowing your parents trauma to become your own. You know, like I remember, like, my dad grew up very poor. My grandma was a single mother of 3 boys, so even when he got something, you know what I mean, like, he couldn't enjoy it because he was so scared of like damaging it, you know what I'm saying? So like, he's still the type, even to this day, you get him like a gift on Christmas, he'll keep it like in its original box under the bed and won't use it, you know what I'm saying? Because he's just so like, he can't get rid of that paranoia of not having something. And there are experiences
that justify that. That's a survival mechanism that he learned. He had to learn.
But it's like, yo, that's not living. Like, you know, you guys bought a house, you have all these things to like worry about, every little nick in like, you know, the countertop, or all these things to stress over, that type of stuff. That's not really living, you know. You're not allowing yourself to enjoy the fruits of your labor at that point, you know. So it's important to not carry on like those generational traumas that our parents had. And I think we were talking about your album that when you had that first interview, and the one thing, you know, speaking of parents and carrying things on, the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, the interview, that like made me check myself to a degree.
Damn. How so?
The bar that you had about the burden of mothers. Do you remember offhand?
Yeah. They become gods, maids, cooks, caretakers of their failures, and by default, amazing mothers.
But it's like, I think about this, I'm like, damn, like, I've taken my mother for granted. Like, as much as I love her, as much as I recognize all the sacrifices she's made, I don't think I recognize it enough. You know what I'm saying? Because not only did she have to bear the burden of my shit as a kid and my sister, she also had to play peacemaker and silence her own voice, you know what I mean? Because we talk about the machismo of like the male and like the way that they react in this household. And you know, your mother almost, I don't know if it's the same for you, but like almost carries on what my grandmother did for my father, babying him. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So it's like she buys his clothing and all these little things like that, and it's expected. It's not even like it's like, oh, thank you, I can't believe you did this. It's like, oh, it's expected.
No,
like,
that's part of being a wife.
Right. But it's like, yo, that's so crazy. Like, you don't have your own life at that point.
And if you don't, you're looked at as a rebel in like the society that is these women.
Right. And your mother-in-law might not like you because she's looking at you like, what, you don't know how to take care of my son. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, the reality is your son is a grown-ass man. You know what I'm saying? And I also see that, like, even with my sister, it's a joking thing where it's like, oh, you know, he's the golden child type of thing. But it's like, it's a weird thing in our culture that the male is like placed like on such a pedestal. And even if there's a sister,
because the women do it too. It's not just men doing that to men. Like the women do it to men as well.
Absolutely. So it breeds this thing where we have like these unrealistic expectations from the women that, you know, are in our lives, regardless if it's our mother or in relationships, all these different things. And it's a very unfair place to put them because it forces them to have to suppress so much of themselves just to cater to us. You know what I'm saying?
What I've also learned on the flip side, as much as I agree with you, obviously I agree with you because it's in my album. But even recently, I've like learned that on the flip side, the man is expected to not be in touch with his emotions. To not address problems, not be vulnerable, and expected to be the lead breadwinner and the person with all of the right decisions and all the capitalistic burdens. And if you don't, then you fall short as a man. And that's a issue all in itself as well. It's like, yo, when did we stop being collaborative? When did it stop being everyone carries each other's weight? You know what I'm saying? And it's like a lot of these practices like our parents are of generations in the past, but this is a new day, especially I think just being here.
Yeah.
You learn how much variables exist. Like Denzel Washington, for example, is like the first one I think about. Like when him or his children get interviewed about growing up or interviewed about like, you know, the dynamic of their home, they always mention like Denzel was not always doing well, and for a long period of time, the mother was. Right. The mother was the one who was financially supporting Denzel while he pursued his acting and was supporting her children and
that's dope.
Being a mother and being supportive of the household. And it's like, man, that's powerful.
Yeah. That's a true partnership.
That's a true partnership. Yep. It's not these caricatures of a relationship, even though I know that they serve their purpose.
Right.
Like I'm sure like you want a woman to be a good mother because that's part of like you hope your child when you're not there is able to like they're and that's the other thing. There's reasons why these specific forms of like how a relationship should exist. Yeah. It came to be for a reason, but I don't think that is as applicable anymore. No. Yeah, I think the world is smaller because technology exists. We're also the first generation of this amount of technology, this access to how many people think, you know, the ways that different cultures operate, whatever the case may be, that we are empowered and we can definitely improve. Yeah. And it's one of the things that I've seen my sister personally like always fight against. And it was never like she was less of a woman if she didn't subscribe to what was thought. She's been a rebel since she could talk.
Was that an issue though, like with your parents and her?
Always. Yeah. Not an issue like, that's the thing, like my parents are still beautiful people, so I think they respected, they saw individuality in her from the jump, but my sister was never shy about, if I want to cook, and if I want to clean, and if I want to tidy, and if I want to take care of my brother and my father, like I'm going to do it, but it is not my responsibility or I'm fall short of being a woman. And I think that's the difference. Like you can do things out of love. Like for me, of course I want to provide for my girl, and hopefully we have children one day, and they don't have to look to anybody else for financial support. But it doesn't make me less of a man if I can't buy you the Jordans, or if I can't, you know what I mean? Like and the same thing goes for a woman. Like, oh, okay, maybe you're an amazing cook, but you can't do the dishes. Like, I'll do the dishes. It's cool. Absolutely. Like, but not, you don't do, if this kitchen isn't spotless is when I show up, you're less of a woman. No, that shouldn't exist anymore. Absolutely. And my sister's definitely like been, for me, a personal like teacher in that, you know, from the dynamics between that, because I don't see it, like you said, like being a son, you don't see it as much.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to celebrate the other person when they do those things. Like we take all that shit for granted. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many times that I think about it, like whether it's my mom or whatever, seeing the way my dad is, I expect a certain thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's a fucked up way to think about it. Like to really not let somebody like really feel the appreciation that they should be getting. You know what I'm saying? Like none of that should be expected at the end of the day. You know, like it'd be nice, you know, you value it, but I think it's also it's so important to make people feel appreciated. Yeah, you know
and I think eventually you, like for me, like if I go over to my parents' house and I go visit them, right, and I realized like there's small ways to show that appreciation without it being like this drawn out dialogue and breaking down the history of like, you know what I mean? Small things like, oh, I didn't ask for coffee, but here you come with my coffee. Like, while you go to the bathroom or whatever, like I'm gonna make sure I take it to the sink myself and wash myself and wash all the dishes that are there. So then when you come back, you're like, oh shit, wait, I would have just done it. And it's like, I know you would have just done it. Right. You've just been doing it for 20 odd years. Absolutely. Let me show you in the small things, like let me not have you work extra. You know, same thing with food. Like, okay, maybe you cook for all of us, it's beautiful. Let me make sure I just pick up the dishes and I wash it without you going into your natural instinct, which is everyone leaves their plates, goes do something else, and you're the one who takes care of the kitchen. You know what I mean? And
well, I mean,
those things go a long way.
Absolutely. That's why it's like it's on, you know, it should be our burden of our generation and younger to break, like I said, those traumas. Like break that toxic masculinity that we grew up with, that was the norm, you know? And then also even breaking the idea that a man can't express emotion, a man can't be vulnerable, and that, you know, it isn't a partnership, that there are these sort of predefined roles. It's not true. It's like, I pick you up when you're down and vice versa. And that's the way it should be.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Yes, bro.
And it doesn't make me less of a man. No. I shouldn't be looked at like that, and I shouldn't feel that way about myself either. Right. It's you know, it's on us to really, you know, that all comes again with educating yourself.
But that's also with your homies, bro. Yeah. And that's the thing, like with me, when I talk to, like I do my best to to be around men that I feel are complete people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Meaning, like, if I'm around my DJ, like if I'm around Cutbird, Brandon, my manager, Wiz, History, whatever, like, if somebody has a problem, if somebody's going through something, I make sure that, like, we make sure collectively that our group chat and our one-on-ones, we don't shy away from a conversation. I meet with my man Fifth Guard, and it's like, if we just have to drive from LI to Brooklyn and make some moves, but in between, like, we share what's going on with our families. We share what's going on with our relationships. We share what's going on with possible, like, friction with someone else. Like, you can let me know you're worried. You can let me know you ain't got it all together today. You can let me know you're not feeling it. There is no level of perfection that you have to consistently live up to for me to, like, for your character to, like, not have any fractions. Like, nah, that's cool. And I think that that's part of it too. It's like, yes, like, with your woman, with somebody who you're in a relationship with, if that's, like, you know, you set up a relationship. But I think it also depends heavily on your friend group, and I think it applies more in this case, men to men. Like I'm not here to, like, look better than you, be stronger than you, like, subtly talk about how much more money I have or more opportunities or vice versa, and bring each other down. It's like, actually, man, like, we can open up. And I feel like that also breeds, because I know that, at least for me, this goes back to it, like, a lot of men in my culture, a lot of it is like, when you go to the parties, you know, the shirts are prim or like sharp. The wife looks presentable. The children better be pristine. You have your jewelry on, and you're looking down at somebody who may not have as much on their table and who can't, you know. And it's just like, wait a minute, like, since when did friendships become competitions of where you're at in your life? And I see that more of the older generation than obviously, like, kids my age, but that exists still too. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, for me, it's like, if I'm gonna have control over it as much as I can, I'm gonna make sure I have it with the people I'm closest to, like my friends. You know?
And I fuck with that because, you know,
it's good to be emotionally aware. You know,
and that's something I struggle with, to be perfectly honest. Opening up to my
homies. It's taking a minute though. Like, real quick, not to but, like, I've had friends, like, one of my best friends, Francisco, like, used to always tell me, like, yo, bro, you can just tell me these things. You can just talk to me, like, yo, I'm here for you. But you don't believe that people are there for you when you're doing it.
You feel like it's empty words.
It's like, oh, nah, whatever. Even though you may or may not have experiences to back it up, I feel like it's just, like, naturally, you're like, nah, I'll figure it out by myself. I figured out things by myself before. But it's like, you know what? It would be unfortunate. Like, I'd be sad if I knew that somebody needed me to be there and they were their own block. They were their own shield to get to me. And I'm here willing and able to help you out. You know what I mean? And I try to think about it, like, as I've thought about it like that, it's helped me gauge the tiers of my relationships with certain people. And make sure that, if you are really in that tier 1 group, it's not being an emotional burden. It's not like spilling on people, but it's nothing if somebody loves you and you love them. Like, yo, bro, like, I got something on my mind that I'm trying to figure out. Let me know if I can give you a call.
That's
and
real.
if somebody tells me that, if I'm busy, like, I can't get on the call now. But I'm like, yo, like, I'm gonna be busy, but after, like, 6 or 7, like, check back in with me. I'm here for you. Let's chop it up. And that's it. You know what I'm saying? That's it for real.
Like, that's you. I mean, we're all walking around with so much, like, unnecessary mental burdens because of that. Like, even when I was just talking to my mom, like, that felt heavy coming out. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something I've never really verbalized out loud like that. But it feels better, to be honest with you, that it's out there like that. Like, the fact that I feel I got that out there, I feel better about that. You know what I mean? That's like one less weight that I have on my shoulder. That's one less, like, thing from my childhood that I might be feeling guilty about, that I'm walking around with. And, you know, little by little, like, stuff like that takes away, you know, people's pain, and pain causes you to do dumb shit a lot of times. And you know,
hell yeah, because it's like, let me try to do the opposite of how I'm feeling. And that's normally pain on somebody else.
Or let me make somebody else hurt now.
Or pain on the future you. You know what I mean? And for real, bro.
No, that's huge. I love that, and I love that, like, you know, we're able to sit up here and try to push that dialogue because it's important. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's all about breaking, like, these generational curses that we're all inheriting. You know what I'm saying? And it's on us to be self-aware enough to know, you know, that we need to be better. Because that's the idea, right? I mean, like, you know, I want my kids to be better than me, and I want that whole thing to continue. I want everybody to learn. And that's the same thing we're talking about, like, listening to people like Royce talk or all this kind of stuff. Like, soak that up, because that's the point. We're all trying to get better. That should be the point. Unfortunately, not everybody has that mindset of, you know, what can I learn from this person to advance myself? You know what I'm saying? That's super important.
And you know what's crazy? It's like unfortunate isn't even like the. I mean, like, the definition of unfortunate can't even correctly define what that means, because I think for me it's almost like
it's tragic.
It's the antithesis of human existence. It's like, it's why artists care about saying the perfect words on the perfect beat at the perfect time. It's why you have researchers and scientists spend countless years of their lives on a specific topic. Like, I was watching a documentary on babies on Netflix, and I'm like, yo, thank God someone out there is passionate about breast milk.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Thank God somebody out there is passionate about baby behavior, and when a child starts to see the world as cautious or they can explore exploration. Like, thank God somebody woke up and that's what they're passionate about. Thank God somebody woke up and they wanted to be a train conductor. Thank God somebody woke up and they wanted to make microphones better. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's the not pushing yourself to evolve, because pushing yourself to evolve, the twin brother to that, the automatic next step is, I have to let y'all know how I did it. I have to let y'all know where I was and where I am now. And any issue that exists, most likely on your mind, we're always on the brink of something new, or the repurposing of something that makes more sense now than it did before, which is why people still reference Sigmund Freud, but they're talking about psychology now on social media. But the purpose of like existing as a human being is to learn from who has existed, and because that's what's supposed to make your life better now. Jay-Z went through it, so you ain't got to. That's why that line is such a quotable from him. You know, I may have butchered it, but like, that's part of it. It's like, man, just go out there, because life is not out here waiting patiently for you either.
No, absolutely.
Not all the time. Like, we age.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's the thing. It's like,
every
it's
moment
like they
fleeting.
say, like, you have to choose your sacrifice. Like Jordan Peterson, I was watching the conversation with him and Joe Rogan. And he's had multiple of them.
Who's Jordan Peterson, by the way?
Jordan Peterson is a very controversial figure to a lot of people because of his specific views on feminist movements and just like women politics. And a lot of his movement has been compared to like has been seen as promotion of like the alt-right movement, because he's like a Meninist to a certain extent, like whatever the case may be. I look at him and I applaud him more for his perspective on courage, his perspective on sacrifices, his perspective on time management, and then just like basically the challenging of yourself to be a better person. And anybody who watches like Joe Rogan's shit, like, he's just a master at, let me chill and let smart people do all the talking, but here and there I'm gonna jump in. But he normally the guides and the guys that his podcast is operating through is improvement of the human being to a certain extent. And they had a conversation about that, where it's just like, man, like, it's better to choose your own sacrifice, because if you don't, by default you are sacrificing time. Like, if you don't wake up one day and it's like, you know what, I'm gonna sacrifice all of these women because, and I'm gonna focus on one. Let's say that's where let's say that's where you're at in your life. If you don't sacrifice that day, and then not tomorrow, like, eventually you're like, okay, 30, never focused on. 35, oh damn, starting to get lonely. Damn, I should have. Now you haven't even built up the years to even know how to emotionally display yourself and be vulnerable with your partner and whatever the case may be. Same thing with money. It's like we were saying a little bit off air. Like, if you start at 25?
Oh yeah.
If you start at 25 and save 100
a month, and you put in like a Roth IRA, by the time you're 65, you have $1 million.
But if you start at 35,
you only have $300,000.
Same thing. It's like, yo, you sacrificed 10 years and lost $700,000 roughly of like a potential savings for you when you're older. And it's like, man, when those types of lessons always get placed, but it's a reason why even me, I'm doing something like this, right? Like, I've never taken time to sacrifice my peace or like my routine to a certain extent to just talk to people, to just put my thoughts out there, because for years motherfuckers been like, yo, like, you're smart, or like, we want to, like, when I do decide to like turn the camera on me on Instagram, man, I have a loyal, you know, you get those people that are just consistent with you. I'm like, and people are just like, yo, I love your music, I love your albums, I love your videos. It has nothing to do with that. I love when you just talk. I like when you just tell me how you
Absolutely.
feel. I like when you just give me a perspective. And I've always been an interview addict.
Yeah.
Part of my major
here.
in NYU was journalism. I mean, I studied social and cultural analysis, but that derived first from psychology, then journalism, and then I landed at that major because it was for me the welding of both.
Yeah.
But I'm able to decide what the direction is, what the topics are, and what signifies like a successful output. So it's like, man, like I haven't sacrificed a discomfort in this specific way, and it's been at the cost of people who could possibly benefit from what I have to say.
Absolutely.
Because Royce doesn't know that I love his latest interview run. Nipsey doesn't know that I watched videos from him from his teens to 20s up until his passing and has been inspired every time I watch. Joe Rogan doesn't know who the hell I am. And sometimes I just throw him on for hours while I'm doing emails and calls, and in the background just hear these dialogues happening. Like, I'm also not being thanked when I'm like, yes, there's a certain level of people that are responding to me and letting me know they fuck with me. But there's a bigger world out there of people that are not telling me that, but are being affected by what I have to do. And so with me
there's actually a larger percentage that's not reacting to it.
It's like I tell people, how many of your favorite what's your favorite artist? Do you follow them on Instagram? Do you comment on all their pictures? Do you tag them every time you listen to this song? You don't.
No.
You don't get a notification for affecting someone.
Absolutely.
If they decide, and that's why I try to be thankful when people, because I'm like, yo, I know how many steps it took you to reach out to me and show me love. Like you heard me for the first, you Shazam me, saw my name, listened to more songs, found me on Instagram, followed me, hit the message button, wrote, probably had some typos, fixing your words. Like, yo, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's beautiful. So it's like, for me, like, even this is like, man, Rad, like, you gotta talk, bro. And I'm happy that you like, you convinced me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, this is our work, you know?
There's this quote that I love, and I'm probably gonna fuck it up to a degree, but it's like,
so good.
Whatever you do in this life may be insignificant, but it's important that you do it. Because it's like, in the grand scheme of everything, this podcast might be small if you're talking about the history of the entire earth, right? It's gonna be very minimal.
Oh yeah, I mean, the history of the entire earth.
Like, think about that. But one person might listen to this. It might affect them, the way they think about something. They might talk to a friend. It might stop that friend further down the line from doing something stupid that then affects this. It's like the butterfly effect. You know what I'm saying? It's like one thought, one person getting put onto this, one person questioning the things that they thought to be true, then has this effect on so many people afterwards because they start touching people after. You know what I'm saying? Like, once we put this out there, it's out there, but then the people listening to it, who hear it, who see it, are going to touch somebody else now, maybe because of that thought process. Like, the shit you and I are talking about is the accumulation of watching a bunch of things, of reading a bunch of things, hearing a bunch of things.
I was just about to reference another one. It's literally,
So that's what I'm saying. So it's like, if that Royce interview never happened, then I wouldn't have had maybe that thought to put to this. You know what I'm saying? If this wouldn't have happened, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's why, in regards to what you're doing, a lot of people are like, oh, well, who's gonna hear this? Who's gonna do it? Like, it doesn't matter how many people hear it. Like, it is important. Like, I hate when people.
It matters how. What can we say?
Absolutely, man.
Even if it's just to me and you.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
absolutely. Because I might take that conversation you and I had, go talk to my girl about it. It might affect the way she goes in her workplace about doing something. That affects this. That affects that. Like, it all matters. It bothers me when people sort of take away how important, every moment really is. You know what I'm saying? And aside from the fact that we're all mortal and we all have like an end date, every moment also leaves an effect on something. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything we touch, we're there. You can't take that away.
Yeah, like I made Burberry better by wearing a jacket.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Something you might, but like, that's a little like, you might have put somebody onto Burberry now who wasn't onto it before.
Like, you know what? I never really fucked with them, but it kind of looks fire with the Peralta Project hoodie. Like, all right, it's lit.
That's what I'm saying. Like, every little thing that you might not even think about, like, affects somebody.
And that's the ill part about being alive. Like, that's like,
because the shit matters.
Man, I love being alive, bro. I love getting older. I love learning from my mistakes. I love the winter blues because it's like, yo, the winter blues is a free opportunity to pay attention to all the shit you've been ignoring in your life. Like, you don't have to wait for something climactic to happen. You don't have to wait for a passing to happen. You don't have to wait for your homie to rob. It's like, sometimes you're doing that all by yourself. You're aware of like, all of your flaws, every error, every like space between you and the desired you, and you get that from snow and 0 degree weather, and it's like I love that.
Less distractions.
I look forward to the period where I'm forced to be inside because through that isolation, I evaluate myself. Through the evaluation, I depress myself more. Through the depression of myself more, I get tired of being depressed. Okay, let me go start making some fucking change.
No, and then
that's part of life.
And when that
the trees do it, when the trees go to nothing and come back again.
Absolutely. And when that weather breaks, you appreciate it that much more.
What?
When that like first day of spring hits New York City, where if you feel it, bro, there's nothing better.
Life is perfect.
Absolutely.
That first spring
there's
day.
There's nothing better than, and it was because you had to go through that like miserable winter feeling that like now you like
nature teaches appreciation.
Absolutely.
Nature implements gratitude. So it's like, man, let me just keep rolling my dice. And it's like I'm gonna call him Yasin Bey because he changed his name. It's like Yasin said, and in this interview with Hot 97, they asked him, why don't you do films more? Why don't we see you out? And he said, he spoke to the exact same extent. He's like, man, of course I would like to, I'm paraphrasing, like, yeah, I'm down to do stuff, but I mistreat money that I gain from doing things that I don't love because now I'm overcompensating for having had a bad experience in the first place.
Yeah. Wow.
So not only is it in your best interest with time, like doing things that make you joyous, it's also in your best interest because the results that you get from that are more likely to like bring you more joy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like even like so time spent like this, like it's not always a monetary exchange, but just us being able to chop it up today at noon.
Yeah.
Like, yo, we've already invested in a better rest of our day.
Yeah.
Because we spent time doing something that we enjoy doing, which is just like saying what the fuck we care about, listening. You know what I mean? Like it's like how do we honor all the great content that's ever existed in the world by and you do that by doing it again, by having another great conversation. That's how you honor the great conversations that have been had. How do I honor the greats in music? By trying my fucking best when I'm in the studio. You know what I mean? Like and that's what it is, yo.
Well, it's like a mental exercise, you know what I'm saying? And like that is refreshing. Like obviously, it's the same way that physical exercise is important, you know what I mean, for your body to feel good about yourself, for breathing, all these different things. Mentally, being around people that push you to think, that push you to tap into those parts of your brain that you like, the information you retained, to really be able to then dissect it and use it in communication and in a conversational form. That exercise right there is huge, you know what I'm saying? Because that now that has things that I might have read 5 years ago on the tip of my brain now that I wasn't even thinking about, and I'm unpacking it at the proper time. You know what I'm saying? Like it's forcing all these things that you've ingested now to come out in like the proper form. You know what I'm saying? Like it to come out in a positive form. It's like all that exercising now has led to like this 6-pack. You know what I'm saying? Not that I have one, but
I'm working on mine too. I'm not really working on it, but I'm starting to. You know what I'm saying?
I'm thinking about working on it.
Yeah, facts, bro.
But I mean, it's just forcing you to be better at the end of the day, and I love that we're living in a time where it's slowly becoming cool to have these types of conversations. It's cool for artists to be active in their communities. It's cool for artists to want to take an activist role, you know. And we were talking about before we got on the mics was what's going on in the Dominican Republic.
And
you're talking about how today was a day that a lot of the artists are going down there.
Today's the Dominican Independence Day.
So put me on, like I kind of just seen like the grumblings on social media. I haven't had a chance to deep dive into what exactly is happening.
So basically, one of the worst things that has happened to, I believe, democracy in current day happened in the DR recently, where the government spent a substantial amount of money to create voting machines, and by the time voters went to vote, you couldn't even see whose name you were voting for. And what it drew back on, because another aspect of like Dominican government and then just the way it's running, its flaws, and anybody who goes there and who not visits for the summer, like lives there for a minute,
you go off the resort,
you know that the government pays for votes. The government goes into municipals and counties or whatever the case may be, go to whatever community leaders exist, and they give you 500, I've heard 500 pesos, 700 pesos, 900 pesos, depends on how much funding the campaign has. And they go in and they say, okay, here's 1,000 pesos. You vote for this person. So usually who wins in the government is just who paid the poorest people the most. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the ways that the system is rigged.
Right, and so that's failing the people.
And it's of course it's failing the people in so many ways because everybody's corrupt.
Right.
The police is corrupt. The police have to be corrupt. Like, you go to DR, you get stopped at checkpoints, and the thing that you're supposed to do is give them 50 to 100 pesos so that they leave you alone. Like, you literally roll down the window, they're going to say, hey, hello, in your hand, or I got something for you so you guys could, like, eat something. What's up? And they're going to be like, okay, thank you so much. See you later.
Yeah.
That's how you survive out there. Right. And a lot of that is the lack of, like, power and positive reinforcement from the government. Like, even here, like, at least the government tries really hard to hide. Like, over there, like, there is no hiding. There are physical bouts, and it just is what it is. And basically, with the voting system, the implication of these machines, how much people's money went into just, like, being wasted for the appearance of, like, advancement and fairness. We're just tired of it. Yeah. People are just tired of it, man. Like, we're tired. We're it's like, as a whole, we are admitting the flaws that we have. And I don't think that there's been an isolated error that has brought together so many people from around the world. Because it's not just Dominicans and it's not just the influential heads. It's like seeing Arcángel, seeing from Calle 13, like seeing Residente talk about it, seeing like all of these like artists even outside of like just like not fully Dominican speaking on these issues and just bringing light to it. So it's only now it's like the Latino community and it's like the U.S., like us here, you know what I'm saying, the first generation, like we're super made aware of it. And I think today is just the day that sharing of power and that sharing of knowledge and the sharing of just being fed up of a system that has betrayed us for so long finally just comes together. And one of the biggest things, like we were talking on, like, education is cool. To sidetrack a little bit, I remember I must have been, I'd say 9th grade, the youngest. I remember going to DR. I was there for like a summer and turning on the news and seeing that there were kids protesting schools because there wasn't enough technology and capabilities to educate the kids who wanted to learn. So there was resources allotted that could only teach, let's say, 150 kids, but there were 750, 800 who wanted to learn. And I'm just like, wow. Like, I remember, like, that's one of the memories I've always drew upon. Like, anytime I feel like, oh, like, my finals are so tough, man, I can't sleep. And I'm like nodding off and like, you know, NYU's library. I'm like, yo, like, there are kids out here now, like today, alive when I am alive, that their protest is, I want to learn and you don't have the facilities to let me. So I'm just like, man, let me not take advantage of the opportunities I have. And I'm just really proud of, like, everybody who's been contributing to the awareness. Obviously the Dominicans are over there, the famous people, the people with, like, you know, millions of followers and just using their platforms to educate, because a lot of the times DR is just seen, you know, people go to DR and they shoot like big booty bitches and they go on beaches and they go to resorts, they go to Punta Cana. They're not actually experiencing the real day-to-day life out there. And I think that this is a moment where the country's actually being seen as a whole, you know?
And to kind of start to wrap things up, I think what's a beautiful thing about the time we live in, and social media has so many negative aspects, but it also has positive ones like this where people's voices truly can be heard. We've seen, like, you know, these types of protests happening pockets around Latin America and in the Caribbean. Like Puerto Rico had a similar situation. We've seen, I think, in Chile, you've seen things like that. And we're able to see it because of social media. And one thing I do want to really sort of applaud this newer generation is, you know, as Hispanics, there was so much interracism happening in our parents' generations and older.
Yes, bro.
You know, Puerto Ricans and Dominicans and this and that. And I really kind of feel like our generation and younger are getting to this place where we realize we're all in this fight together. And that's what's truly going to help advance our communities, you know, realizing that it's not about what Hispanic, you know, place you're from. Anybody that hates, you know, Hispanics and Latinos, they don't care which country you come from. What.
Oh yeah, no, we're all Mexican.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, oh no, this is Mexican. Whatever.
They hate
like,
all of us. They don't. You know, if you're a racist who hates people of Latin descent, you hate everybody.
Yeah, I hate specifically Cubans.
Exactly.
Like, nah, man.
So
like,
we're all
boxed into you.
Exactly. So we're all in this fight together, and I think the recognition of that together, and I think you've seen it in a lot of the Latin music where people are just cross-pollinating. Features are happening with people from all different countries, and it's no longer just one genre represents one area and this and that. Everybody's kind of mixing and matching.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it in a social context, which I think is such a beautiful thing.
And I think that's part of like the marriage, because it's been attempted. Like one of my favorite, maybe like my top 2,500 songs, just because there's so many songs that I love. But like one of them is the Nas and Daddy Yankee joint from the 90s.
Yeah.
The same thing when Nori and Fat Joe took it upon themselves to start to collabing with Daddy Yankee, collabing with like Nina Sky and Big Mato and really putting on for like the reggaeton community and it never really like Don Omar jumped on the Joel Santana song like word, but it's like now with the culmination of like specifically Spanish speaking music being so big and social media existing and people like you and me existing, you know what I'm saying? Like it's having its true honor, and obviously the Super Bowl, like that was just like beautiful. A cherry on top as far as like, nah, we are here and we are present, and it's like we love everybody, but we love our culture for real, and we have to show it off because we haven't really been afforded that big of enough stage, it's our responsibility, man.
Absolutely, it's beautiful, and I think that's like probably the perfect bow to put on this episode.
Yeah, I guess so. First episode,
we did it.
Yeah, this is good, man.
Yeah. And for the record, if you're not watching the visual, we didn't have any notes or anything. That was just like an hour straight.
It was just like, how do we just and I think most of our conversations are gonna just be like that,
right?
Because I think that was part of the motivation on both our sides. It's like even the Breakfast Club interview that we did do, it's like, man, and homies told me too, like it seemed like you guys had so much more to talk about that it was being limited. And when we met up to decide this, we had a whole podcast episode before we were like, okay, so should we do it?
Right. Nah, it's very true. I mean, well, I think definitely we try to do this every week for people. And I think the goal will probably be to bring on some other people as well, like that we can talk to that we think their voices need to be heard within the community as well. But I want to give out your socials. Yeah,
my name is Radamiz, Radamiz. Type that in wherever you use the internet and I will pop up.
Yeah, I'm at DJ Dramos, Dramos, and we'll make an actual page for this.
Yeah, we'll have a page for this
at some point.
Yeah.
Next episode, we'll shout that out. But yeah, man, we did it.
Yo, love, God bless. Make sure you guys count 5 blessings before you go to sleep.
I love it.